It is a character-centered, oh my goodness, I'm already seeing the comics everywhere in the room of the person that I'm talking with. A character-centered episode of Words, Images, and Worlds with author, creator, podcaster Matthew Jasso. Matthew, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. I like writer, podcaster, creator. I like that.
Yes,
That sounds
all
much
the
more,
hyphens.
yeah, much more than hobbyist who gets paid occasionally.
That's also a good one. That is a good one. If you can get paid for your hobbies, oh my goodness, that's the dream, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I'm excited. What do we got? What are we doing today? Sorry, I'm
We
drinking more energy.
That's all right. That's all right. How many of those have you had today? Just curious.
I've had only this is my first one, but I have had two cups of coffee already. So
Ah, all
by
right,
this
all
end of
right.
this interview, I should be doing Tasmanian devil level stuff. So we'll be fine.
We are from the same cloth here. This is absolutely my way of being. On a given day, I have 4 to 5 cups of coffee. My students can tell you that it's a lot. It's a lot to process. Uh, I was admiring your shelf. I mentioned it before we were on
Oh
the
yes.
podcast officially, and I love a good like showcase of fandom. And I know that you have an affinity for Nightwing there. So just appreciating that and wonderful, wonderful stuff that
Yeah.
we have to talk
It's
about.
if I can, I'm gonna very
Yeah,
little. Let's see if I can. I don't know if
take
you
us
could.
on a
You know
cribs
what?
tour.
I'm just gonna grab stuff.
Yeah,
So that'll be easier. Nightwing.
love it. That's
Um.
very like the 90s, the Bloodhaven, that kind of
Yes.
version.
The Scott McDaniel. This is
Yes.
actually kind of funny. So there's a toy line called Batman Unlimited. It ran for a couple of years. Is
Mhm.
I don't like him in the red, but this is just a cool figure. Um,
Yes, that is.
and then this is my. I mean, you can see that one. There's a whole level of different costumes, but this one is my favorite. I'm gonna have to reach way out.
Mm-hmm.
This was a gift from my wife. It's this really cool statue,
Oh,
but it
nice.
looks
Uh-huh.
weird because it's supposed to hang like this.
Ah,
And then you could put, and it's them upside down. But the problem is, I can't find anywhere to hang it where it's not just looking at his butt instead.
oh,
So
right,
I
right.
just set it up and let it, let it be.
That's that's a good solution. It's a good solution.
And that's about a
Ha
third of the toys in my office.
Beautiful, beautiful. How did you get into this world of comics and storytelling? What tapped you into this?
um, so it's kind of interesting. So my dad was younger. He was like 21 when I was born. So he
Hmm.
was a comic book person himself. So there was never a time as a kid that my dad was ever like, "Oh no, not comics." He brought him in. He watched cartoons with me, introduced me all the stuff like, "Here, watch this anime," because this is I'm a 70s kid. So like
Hmm.
Speed Racer, Star Blazers, which is Space Battleship Yamato, G-Force or Battle of the Planets, Gotcha Man, whatever it was called. He was totally cool about like, "Hey, this." Where a lot of dads are like, no, 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 because in that time comics weren't what they are now. So, but he was always introducing me to that. So that was really what kind of got me. And I'm also of the age of like Super Friends is on TV all the time. Um, I remember I had a Batman a green machine. It's like all the
Hmm.
things. So that was kind of my introduction to it. And then as time goes on and I get older, and then comics in the 80s were like going to a comic store as a speakeasy. Like you had where was it? Could be on the
Yes.
backside of a strip center and you didn't know it was there, you weren't going. So it's
Hmm.
it was really cool to kind of get into that and then through that process I knew I'd always wanted to be a writer as a kid, and but there's no path for that. You don't, hey, I'm going to be
Yeah.
a writer. Here's your education path. So I did it all as a kid and through high school. And then mid to late high school is when image kicks in. And then the idea
Yeah.
of, wait, could I write comics? Could that be a thing? And I, dreamed that for a couple years. And then, as we do, we get into life and you just move on. And I
Mhm.
always kind of had this like, hey, this could be something fun. But yeah, that's I think I'm going too far with this answer. But yeah, that's I've
Oh, you're
always
you're
wanted,
great.
yeah, I've always wanted to write. I've always wanted to be creative, and I got into film for a while. Uh, Technically tried to write a novel that went horribly wrong because that's a lot of detail I don't want to write. Um, but yeah, I just kind of had have kind of come in and out of it, and I maybe about 8 years ago, 7 years ago, I got to that point where we all get to that point where we have adult money. We're like, oh, we could
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
blow money on anything. So then I decided, you know what? I'll find an artist. I'll try to publish something or try to get something published and did that for about 8 months. And it was just one of those like, it's not working the way I wanted to do it.
Hmm.
I'm at the time, I mean, I'm still married, but I had young children. I had 3 kids still living at home. So the idea of going out of town for a convention in hopes that I might sell something, it's like, no. So it was like, either I get somebody else to publish and distribute this, or I'm not going to do it because I don't want to burn through that time and money. And so then I just kind of backed away from it. And then about 2.5 years ago, one of the things I had followed was like, hey, we're looking for writers. And I submitted, got the job. And then within 2 months of getting that job, got offers from like 3 or 4 other companies. It was just a weird, like, I was done. I thought I had anything to do with it. And then got a job at this company. Then this other company called me and this other company. And then that guy referred me. And it was before I knew it, I was in it.
Hmm.
And
Nice.
that's kind of what led me to Phantom Hawk was that whole kind of explosion of people interested in working with me.
Cool, cool. Yeah, as you were answering, it was actually really cool. It was like you were reading my mind. I was like, let's bridge him from reader to creator to writer. I was going to ask a bridging question, so that totally fits and goes
It's
with
not
the
my first
flow.
rodeo, sir. Not my first
That's
rodeo. I'm
right.
here.
You done. How many episodes of your podcast have you produced? Just by curiosity.
I think we're at 160-ish, but
Yeah,
I've
not your
done
first rodeo.
yeah, but I've done a couple before then. So I actually
Yeah.
did. I had a version of my previous podcast that was an interview
Hmm.
podcast. It was fun, but I quickly realized that if you interview your friends, only you and your friends care.
True enough. True enough.
It was fun, but it was like it was one of those times like, yeah, we need to get some guests, like some people that people are known because no one's listening to you and your buddies. But it was fun. Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Uh, you mentioned Phantom Hawk, so please tell us about the origins of this character. Very cool design. I'm going to ask about that as well.
Sure. So Nick Garber is the guy who owns Apogee Comics, and I was brought on as a freelance writer to do another title. Oh no, it's announced. It's called Quickwire, and it was one of those kind of random like he and I had known each other and talked for about 6 years, but I'm not the guy who's going to be like, hey, can I work for your company? We had just always talked, and one time I had said like, hey, if you're ever like, I'm kind of out, but if you ever need to bounce ideas, I'm cool. And then like
Hmm.
7 months later, he literally, after I'd gotten, like I said before, a job with a Denver company, he just messages me randomly in the middle of the night, like, hey, I have this character. This is what he looks like. You're gonna write him. And I was like, uh, what? And then through that was able to kind of impress him with what I was doing. And then due to some things that were happening, his flagship title, Phantom Hawk, was like, okay, what are we going to do here? And we ended up rebooting it. And then through my, hey, if I rebooted it, I would do this, came, well, then do that. And then it was like, oh,
Hmm.
okay.
Hmm.
So that was how I got involved. But Nick had created the character. This is one of those, I think some of us creatives have those characters like we create as a kid. And then every so often we revisit it and
Hmm.
let's upgrade this, let's change this, you know. And that's this character for him. So it was very interesting to kind of come in and like, okay, what can I push, what can I change, and having a lot of conversation with him about like, okay, you don't want this, can I do this? Or like I think the funniest comment I got was when I wrote the second issue. I would write the issue and then send it to him. And I wrote the second one. And I would like, here's the first 8 pages. And the comment back was, did you just rewrite his origin better than I ever did? I was like, I guess I don't know. So it was a lot of fun. And what I kind of proposed to him when I was working on it was like, as much fun as it is to kind of do short stories, I said, let me do all four of the arc. And then when I'm done, I can go back and rewrite them all knowing what I've done. And he was like, okay. So all four of the issues of Phantom Hawk have been written since the beginning of this year.
Oh, nice. Very generative,
So
very quick.
it was, well, that was a year and a half to get there, but but the thing of it is it really kind of gave a really cool one for me to be able to go like, okay, this is the things I made up. Okay, now I can go back through and kind of correct things, but then also to be able to give this to an artist and say, this is where things are going. This is
Mhm,
what is
mhm,
happening, because you don't think about that is that sometimes at this level you have a lot of guys who you're like, do this issue, and then they may never even see that issue again, or they may not even get back on there may not even be a number two, let alone if they bring that guy back. So it
mhm,
was like,
mhm.
hey, no, let's get the same guy to do everything, let him know everything that's happening. Hopefully he'll love it. And then you also, for me personally, it's like, hey, this character who you're drawing in this issue, well, he means something in issue 3, so make sure you
Mhm.
do something cool with him now. And it was really cool way to work, and just to kind of bring that into the fold. And then for Nick, he was just happy because it was like, oh, now I know exactly what this thing's going to be, and not the like, hey, here's issue 1, well, issue 2, whenever we're ready, I'll write it. I was like, no, I want to dig in here. So we did that with Quickwire. So like all 4 issues of Quickwire were finished as of March of this year. And then there's other things I can't discuss that we're working on already. But
Mhm, mhm.
it is
Cool.
also really cool because in that environment, to be able to go like, hey, you know what? I like what we did here. Let's kick that up. You know, issue
Yeah.
2, I did this. Let's go back to issue 1 and kick this up. And I think that's an advantage of where we are, is like we're not having to make sure every issue is done in 30 days. So why not take the time? But he is the one who created the look of the guy. He's the one that created the colors, the basis of the origin. And I just was able to come in there and tweak it a little bit. I mean, we're all not young. We'll just say that. We don't have to give out numbers. But this character was created in the 90s when all of them were a certain way. So to be able to come in here and tweak a couple things, not completely change him, but do little things here and there. Like I think the one thing that I brought to it that he was like, that's actually really cool, was like, how does did we get away from like, hey, it's a layer. Like Batman has
Mhm.
a bat cave, or this person has this base. Well, this guy is not technically from this city he's in. He's just showing up to do this investigation, and then he's probably going to go somewhere else. So I was like, well, he doesn't. That means he doesn't have a house. He's not going to Airbnb a vigilante cave. So I was like, dude, what if he had like a houseboat, like some kind of like thing, and then he could have a submersible thing attached to it, and that's how he would go other places. And he was like, yeah, no one's doing that. Let's do that.
Yeah,
So it was
that's
just this
cool.
really cool idea, but like him allowing me to do something that where I'm like, no, he's not going to be at a warehouse, the stereotypical warehouse, or the high rise apartment. No, he's in a boat, and that
Yeah.
just means that when he's done, he just takes off and he'll go wherever else he wants after that. So that was a lot of freedom he gave me to kind of do changes that don't change the core of the character, but kind of add something to him. So I really have to thank Nick for letting me kind of play in that universe.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a lot of responsibility to hand to someone. You want to honor the material, you want to honor the legacy. I mean, thinking of a character that has been around in this guy's mind for decades, right? Like,
Oh
and he
yeah,
has a very emblematic design, that Toth-ish sort of kind of look about him.
yeah, and it was to kind of, okay, what are his powers? What are his abilities? What does everything he have do? Okay, I'm gonna figure out a way to put that in the first issue, And
Hmm.
not that you have to explain it, but just show him do it. And I think that's where we had a lot of fun, is that because sometimes that doesn't always happen. Somebody takes over your character and, you hope they do the things you want them to do. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And you're just like, so I'm very much what in a situation like this as a freelance writer, like I may call you every other day. Hey, I had this idea. Does this work? Hey, what about this? And if you say no, then it doesn't happen. And I've had that happen before. I've turned in a script and someone be like, this is really good, not for this. Like, oh,
Hmm.
okay, I
Hmm.
got you. And then having to go back and change it. So I that's why I'm always trying to, like, in this capacity as a freelance writer, like my job is to write the character you created in a story you want him to be in. And then now that I've done these first four, now it's easier for me to go like, well, in issue five,
Hmm. Hmm. The
you,
story
you
continues.
you trust me, so now I'm gonna go crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Without spoilers, of course, anything that you'd like to mention about this current story chapter, any way that the character is being challenged or stretched or showcased, anything that he's up against that you'd like to mention.
Yeah, it's because he had already done stuff and we weren't doing origins. It was a lot of fun to just kind of drop into the action. I
Hmm.
am a huge action guy. I love action. If you like, yeah, I could go on rants about different shows if you want me to, but we'll put a pin in that for a second. But like, my thing is like, dude, this is a comic about a vigilante. There's got to be at least 1 to 3 action sequences in every episode or every issue. Like something has to happen. You can give origin. So he was really nice to let me do that. And then it's kind of funny. The character used a karambit, which is is weird. Sorry, he
Oh,
uses a
you're good.
karambit, which is a knife that's used like
Ah,
this,
a cool
and
knife. I
a
love
cool
that.
knife. And it just so happened to be that for a film project, I had taught myself how to use one. And because I've done martial arts since I was a kid, so I've been doing martial arts for, we'll just say, decades and not count them up. But but it was cool because then when I saw that, I was like, hey, let me run with this karambit stuff because I've just really dug deep for this project. It didn't happen. Like, let me play with it. And he was like, okay. And then like I showed him some things and some cool stuff, and he was like, dude, that okay, yes, do that. And then and then when the artist came on board, it was like, all right, here's these videos of how this works. You need to make
Nice.
sure it's gone together. And I remember one time I was trying to show him this disarm where the guy had a rifle and he uses the knife to disarm the guy. And the poor artist, granted, I had like stuck it on my chest of drawers and like tried to do the movement. And I was like, okay. And I was like, son, come here. My son's 12. So I put him on like a little stool. So he was the same height as me. And I was like, all right, you got to react to this. So then did the video and showed him everything. And the artist comment was like, your son's a good actor. But it was to be able to kind of unlock that, and just
Mhm.
happened to be that a year before I had gone into that Kali, um, karambit stuff, and then for it to just be like, hey, here's this book that the guy uses a karambit. Like, it's such a niche weapon to begin with that's used properly, at least. It was a lot of fun to kind of do that. And so if you guys are into that kind of level of cool martial arts stuff, this book's got it, because he goes
Nice.
he basically takes down 10 different security personnel with this knife, disarming them in different ways and doing different stuff. And it's been cool. And then I won't spoil the other thing, but there is a weapon that the villain uses that is one of those, like, no one ever uses this weapon. So when we had to create this character, I was like, can I give him this? Like, let's not do the swords thing. Everybody does the swords thing. Everybody does the
Mhm.
butterfly swords thing. I'm like, let's do this weapon. And he was like, I don't know what that is. So I had to send him pictures. He's like, that's cool. Let's do that. So yes, there is
Nice.
a karambit versus random weapon fight at the end of the issue. that is really cool. So like that kind of stuff excites me. I don't know if anybody else is excited by that, but if you are, come check out Phantom Hawk #1.
And I love the leveraging of your martial arts knowledge from, I'm assuming just years, because you look very young actually. Um, so love the leveraging of that knowledge, and also just cool to think about that process of kind of showcasing to the artist, this is what this move might look like, and sharing videos and things like that. So it sounds like there's a lot of collaboration that's gone into these pages.
Yeah, we did. I started something back when I did my own comic that I was like, this is invaluable, and it's this is that so often like somebody will be on the chat like in Facebook, and they're like, here's the
Hmm.
page, and then you start talking about the page, and then now you're 15 lines in and the page is gone.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
what I always do is I'll create a group in Facebook and just tell the artist, post a sketch, post your pencils, and then I'm going to go in there and say, hey, this, that, this, and then I can send you a video or a picture or reference right under that in the comments for that particular picture. So everything links. You're not having to scroll through text and figure out what I'm talking about for this thing. I can say, hey, on this page, panel 3 is wrong because this, blah, 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 blah. Or,
Hmm.
hey,
Hmm.
this looks really good, but can we tweak this or tweak that? And like sometimes, like I said, is even with the videos, you then have to go, okay, I'm just doing a video for reference. You as the artist are going to come in with a really cool dynamic shot. And this
Hmm.
guy has his name is Bruno Tyler. He is a fantastic artist. And he's brought in some really cool stuff, but every so often he'll do something and it's like, no, that is really cool. Except it looks like he stabbed him in the head. I need you to rotate the camera a little. And but you never get that. You know, we would be going back and forth like, no, this thing. So that has been such a useful tool working with all these different artists to kind of streamline that is because I hate when like you just kind of have a hard time communicating. No, 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 this. And then before you know it, you like, and then what's worse is like some of these guys are from like Brazil or Central America. So there's a bit of a language barrier. So you can't call them
Hmm.
and talk them on the phone. They, you know, I don't speak Portuguese. It'd be nice if I did, but I don't. So that's where you get into like, this is the best way to do that. And Bruno has been amazing. I worked with him previously with a different company named Grok, and he and I worked on about 3 or 4 different shorts. And then when this came up and we were looking for a new artist for it for the reboot, I told Nick like, I think this might be your guy. You need to look at his work. And he saw
Hmm.
like 2 or 3 of the stuff, and then we were like, hey, do this real quick. Kind of tossed him a couple pages and had him do a character study, and it was just like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
this is it. This is it. We're gonna do this. So
nice.
it's been a lot of fun to work with him in a longer sense because we did like 5 pagers and 8 pagers, but to do like a full form thing has been amazing. I got my hats off to Bruno because his work has really kind of brought this title. I mean, look, you could write the coolest script in the world, but if the art is blah, it's not going to help.
Right,
It's a visual
right.
medium. So to have an artist kind of come on here and really kick it up has been amazing, and we've been really happy with this work.
Awesome. Well, if I am a listener out there and I want to find out more about your work, support the book, where are some places I might go to do that?
Okay, my handle is the Hasso Band across all social media: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I think I have a Threads, but you can basically get me on any of that stuff. And then Apogee has its own page on Facebook, and then you will have the link for the fund. It's Fund My Comic Phantom Hawk.
Mhm.
Yeah, www.fundmycomic.com, and then the campaign is Phantom Hawk Resolute is the name of the first 4 issue story arc. Um, and then, like you said before, I do have a podcast called We Are. I'm sorry, we changed the name. It is called DC Junction. So you can
Mhm.
find it across all social media at DC Junction with a K.